Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's not morning anymore. But good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this Back of the Napkin Lunch. This will be the last one that's funded by the Department of Employment and Workplace Relations, DEWA, Workforce Australia. So it's been a heck of a ride. So let's focus on all the positives. And what I thought I'd do is I got a card for Wendy. I just sort of pass it around if anyone. It's not going to be big enough. So maybe all over the front, the back, wherever you want to put. But if you want to put a message into that, I'll stick it on the table and just pass it round. Because these Back of the Napkin lunches, I think they started with a handful of people, and now there's a full room. Four people at the first Back of the Napkin lunch. So, like I said, this is the last one funded by the Department of Employment and Workplace Relations. Who knows how we're going to continue it on, but we're committed to finding a way. Thank you. So meals are coming out. So the meals will continue to come out. Please eat as Wendy speaks. So just continue eating. And thank you for all finishing your conversations. I hope you've made plenty of connections, because that's why we do these things. So make sure that you do connect. Now, Wendy, most of you, raise your hand if you've not met Wendy. One, two. That's it. So many of you know Wendy in a very local context through these lunches, through the work she does with Switch Start Scale, Workforce Blueprint. Doesn't tend to get so much of a look in this space, but people keep coming up and saying, "Oh, now the funding's gone. What's going to happen?" Now, several of our colleagues around the country have had to close their business, but we've been around for 20 plus years. I don't know if we'll be around for another 20. We're retiring soon, so yeah. But we'll still be around, and a large reason that we have been around for a long time, and will continue to be around after that, is because the work that we generally do, while you might see it in this context, it's also national and international. So the focus of this lunch is on the local work you do, but also how can you go national and international. Because you might be surprising just how easy it would be for a lot of you to transition from working only in your local region, whether it be a north, south, east, west component of the city, to a broader state-based outlook, or going nationally and working around the rest of the country, or working internationally. Even if you are working specifically here, we've got things like lunches where you go out in limos and helicopters. You're still attracting an international audience. Yes, who are you after? Wendy, there you go. So we're talking about an international audience. So Wendy's going to talk to you about that today. Is that something you'd be interested in? If you could, yes. One person in the room is interested. What about the rest of us? Is there anyone else that's interested in potentially? Fantastic. So over to Wendy Perry. Thank you.
Thanks, honey. It's nice when your biggest supporter and cheerleader introduces you at something, isn't it? He's very sweet. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. Okay, so we are going to talk about the opportunities here and now, but also nationally and internationally. But I wanted to start by sharing a little bit of some insight with you, because earlier this year, my company added the 31st country to the list of countries that we'd work with, which was Bangladesh. And we can chat later about how this originally started about 12 or 13 years ago, looking at international opportunities. But if I take you back, and if you were with me in 2018, you also would have been lurking on LinkedIn, and you might have seen this opportunity that popped up to say, would you like to put in a proposal to look at action research and education in your entrepreneurial ecosystem? And you know what happens when you see these opportunities and you think, is this for real? You also ask yourself, well, why would you put in for this when probably everybody else is going to be looking at this opportunity too? What sort of chance would you have? But if you, like me, put in for this opportunity, it took a couple of hours. It went up to an organisation that had an acronym. Turns out it actually was the United Nations. And you would have probably also thought, like, there's no way that this is even going to get selected. You would have forgotten about it. you would have, not bothered about it, just let it go. But raise your hand and let me know, call it out even, how many people or organisations do you think would have gone for that opportunity? So what it was basically research your local entrepreneurial ecosystem or your country's ecosystem, turn that into a paper, get to present it, and do that with other colleagues around the whole world. How many organisations or proposals do you think would have gone in? Just call it out. Thousands? Enough?
Was it
50?
tens? Is it hundreds? What do you think?
do you
Shout a
reckon?
number, a couple of numbers. Shout some numbers out.
7? 20? Okay. Well, none of you have got the answer right, and it's kind of ironic because it was 0 others other than my organisation that put in to do this amazing research. And you doubt yourself because you think, okay, we're up against major universities. There is not just an Adelaide ecosystem, there's accelerators, incubators, governments all around the whole country. So what ended up happening from that, and if you then got the news, like I did, if you then got the news that said, okay, you're going to do this project now, we're going to pay you for it, you're then going to go to Bangkok and you're going to present it in front of an international audience with the backing of the acronym ended up being the United Nations. And then you're also going to go to South Korea and present this piece of work, and you're going to spend a whole week there, and we're paying for you to do the project, for you to do all of the accommodation, all of the travel. We're going to put you up on a massive stage in front of a huge global audience. You'd be pretty happy with that, right? Yes. Did I go to a lot of grant writing?
Sort of ceremonies or anything like that to do this application? I mean, it's such a big thing, like a global. Like, did you go to any of these?
Did I go to any
I
grant writing? I had it,
yeah.
I know. Well, you would probably be surprised because the amount of time that I actually spent on that application was a few hours. And I had experience writing grants and things before, but this was an opportunity where you almost got to create what the solution was. They had very broad guidelines, but you basically got to say exactly what you wanted to do. Okay? So sometimes what happens is we count ourselves out of things because we think, oh no, everyone else will go for that, particularly international opportunities. We don't realise that we've hardly got any kind of competition. Yep.
So your background in grant writing, did it help, or didn't really matter? So
My background in grant writing helped, but more what helped was my ability to creatively form up an idea and a concept and say how I would do it. So it wasn't a standard fill in the form, da-da-da. It was more write and describe what you would do and put it towards us. And this is interesting as well because Scott and I have also just recently won a grant which is going to be public soon, and they only wanted 25 words or less for this other grant that we just won, right? And I can't say 100% what it is because it's going to be announced next week, but I did remind Scott what we said that we would do, and it is related to technology that I saw in Austin this year, and then Scott's like, how the hell are we going to do that? But we'll make it happen. But that was only 25 words or less, right?
When you say we,
Yeah.
does that mean we or does that mean...
Oh, it means you and I and our team. Yeah. All right, so we're going to run through a little bit of a system. Like if you've been at workshops and events that we've run before, you know that we have a systematized approach to doing things. So can you please grab a napkin, or maybe you and your person next to you would grab a napkin. Grab a napkin because it is the back of the Napkin Lunch. It's in the cutlery. Yeah, grab a napkin. Got one? Who needs one? All right. Grab a napkin. Oh, you guys have got spare. Hello, Jane. How are you? Nice to see you sitting with Esther. All right. And who else needs one? Anyone else? Got your napkin? Okay. I'd like you to fold your napkin so that you have 9 segments to it. You might do some creative origami or something a bit interesting, but fold your napkin so you have 9 segments. No cheating. Has to be 9, Charlene. Yes, I know you're a rebel, but it has to be 9. It doesn't have to be equal shapes. It can be whatever you creatively come up with. All right, have you got that? Got 9? You don't have 10. If you folded it like that, surely you have 9. 3 threes is the secret, but you know. But Sue Tuna's folded it really beautifully, like a flower or, you know. Okay, but we're going to touch on 9 kind of elements today. All right, are you ready? So you might want to get your pen out or your phone out to take some notes, because the idea with the back of the napkin lunch originally was that you would be taking notes on the napkin.
I think over time though, napkins have got thinner and thinner from the 1980s, concept of writing your notes on the back of a napkin.
Probably that's how deals were done back then, weren't they? All right, everybody, we're going to talk about the first 3 parts of the system, and because this is about local, national, and international, what do you think the letters are? L and I. Well done, Suzanne. Good job. So L and I, the first 3 components of this system all start with L. Okay, so when it comes to thinking about where your opportunities are, what you're doing today, what many of you do, week in, week out, the first part of it is local networking. So jot down local networking as your first L. Local networking. Now, one of the things about that is thinking through where is your potential customer or client base. Because in Adelaide and South Australia, you could literally go to a networking event for breakfast, lunch and dinner and evening snacks every single day of the week. So one of the things that's really important is to think through, is your target market going to be there? Your potential collaborators. I often come across people and they are going to networking events, but they're not seeing any kind of return from that investment. Now, you can go along because you want to have friends and you want to have supporters and cheerleaders, and that is valid, but you should not be spending all of your time in those sort of networking events. So, just quickly, talk to the person next to you. What kind of networking events do you go to? Just a really quick 30-second conversation. What networking events do you go to?
And raise your hand if you've got a suggestion. We'll just shout a few through the microphone, yeah?
I go to the opening of an envelope. I go everywhere.
The opening of an envelope. If anyone's got an opening of an envelope, invite Charlene, she'll come along. Any suggestions on events you can go to?
Yeah, the Polaris Centre runs a lot of events.
Polaris Centre events, yeah. What about you, Sue?
You could join Business SA.
Good.
Business SA, yeah.
I brought it to my hair today, so it looks. I don't know. So I'm getting
Anyone got any suggestions for events that we haven't talked about or heard about yet? Possible. You run a few events, don't you?
Yes.
Okay, everybody, let's just listen in. So close out your conversation. Okay. Shh. Scotty, what are some of the events that people are going to? What are some of the events people are going to?
Some of the events people are going to.
Possible has some suggestions.
Possible. Let's go.
Businesses and networking events.
Possible runs his own networking events, yet he promotes Business SA networking events, yeah? If you're going to network, one of the things that's really important is to make sure that you're promoting what you do in a very subtle way. So what events might you suggest people go to?
Okay, everybody listening in.
First of all, the multicultural events that we organize as well, they are also very important to attend. Businesses also has a lot of events that they organize that can find your target market there. And also your target audience or the clients that you're looking for as well.
But most importantly, if you're looking to network internationally, maybe the multicultural events might be really important ones.
Any other quick suggestions?
Technical events. So it could be AWS or could be could be throwing pens. Technical events or
Yeah, so the takeaway here, everybody, is to think about, is your target market here, but also throw something interesting or different in the mix. For example, Adelaide has an AgTech meetup. It has AR and VR meetups. It has an AI meetup. It has Amazon, that Chris goes to a lot of the time, that runs meetups. So maybe you need to think outside the box a little bit and think about, okay, could I go to something? And a key theme is in relation to technology, obviously, for the future. So if you're not already exposing yourself to the kind of innovation that's happening in that tech space, then just, take a look and go along. Okay, the next L is a loyal client base. So we want to foster a loyal client base. And I would find it really hard to think of another client base that is not as loyal as Switch Start Scale clients. Like, you guys, absolutely gold star. You back us 100%. You're so supportive. When we go through hard times, you're there for us. You turn up, you show up, you invite other people, you recommend others. Like, the word of mouth there is absolutely nuts. And that's because you all have a value of giving first, right? We have something in common around our values and our behaviours. We give first without any kind of expectations. And that approach does actually stand out, because we've all been to networking events and met people who are wankers. Yeah. Narcissists. It's a technical term, yes. Okay, so loyal client base. The ways that you can foster that is through your communication, your vulnerability, your honesty, sharing what's truly happening, promoting people ahead of yourself, like sharing on social media what your clients are actually doing, blogging about them, writing videos. We often share people's posts on social media without them asking at all. So those actually do an amazing kind of like, it's not like you're looking for brownie points in the bank or anything like that, like sometimes you are with relationships, but it really does help in terms of people appreciating what you're about.
The other thing is, when you are sharing what your clients do and you're sharing your clients' success stories, effectively you're putting yourself out there and showcasing your work. So if you're working with a client and they're getting a great result, you'd be mad not to share their great result on social media and on your own socials and promote them, because effectively you're promoting yourself as well.
Yeah, and there's two women in the room that come to mind that do a really good job of that, and that's Tony Everard, and Charlene Lynch, because you guys, you do really promote, like, oh, this person signed up for this program, this person's at this course, they're investing in their professional personal development. Like, that really is a great strategy to employ. Okay,
and I'm sure Wendy timed that intentionally, Tony, to make sure you'd just taken a mouthful of food.
Oh, sorry, Tony, I didn't see that. Okay, the third L is landscape analysis. Okay, so sometimes when we're in business, we're very focused on here and now and what's happening. We are not necessarily looking. We're not necessarily looking broader across the landscape. And there's a couple of things that I just want to mention here. There is no doubt that when it comes to the new financial year, we're already seeing this in evidence playing out. People are tightening up their finances, right? We are all coming under pressure personally and in our own businesses about the cost of labour, inflation, interest rate rises, looking at our expenses, and this is definitely playing out. We ran a webinar on Monday with BDO, who are our accountants, and they're saying across the board, we are seeing medium and large organisations really pulling back, right? Bringing things back in-house. Where can we, get more efficient cost recovery? Can we slash some expenses? Can we think about what we're doing? So it is absolutely going to get harder in the new financial year, particularly if you have business to business, and even if you have business to customers on household spending. People are going to be thinking, should I spend this on X, Y, Z experience, on my food delivery or whatever? Like, people are absolutely already thinking about that. But this also brings opportunities. So if you are not already across things like the international trade agreements, now Australia has been through a massive negotiation with the likes of Indonesia. We had 16 or 17 rounds of that trade agreement. That is 250 million people compared to our 25.6 million people. We've just also signed one with India. Okay? The other thing that is really big news is AUKUS. Do you know what AUKUS is? Who knows what AUKUS is? What does it stand for? Australia, UK, US. Okay? The AUKUS trade agreement is going to be ridiculous. So all the conversation at the moment is about defence because that's what's driving that deal. But we're doing an event on the 1st of August, so you might want to jot that down, with the City of Charles Sturt, because the FIFA Women's World Cup is coming to town, right? It's going to be bringing tourists and people that want to do experiences. On that evening, we're going to be doing a session on AUKUS and all of the opportunities outside of defence. And you might be thinking, oh, this has nothing to do with me. Absolutely everybody in this room and all of your friends and colleagues and people in business should be across this because the opportunities will be phenomenal, but you have to educate yourself about that. So the landscape analysis is key. All right, we've done all of the L's. Any quick questions? So local networking, try out different networks, figure out where your clients or customers are, but do something different, like go to an ag tech event even though you're not in ag tech and see the dudes in their check shirts and Blundstones, but they're tech savvy. They're quite a nice group to chat with. Your loyal client base, and then also your landscape analysis. Any quick questions or comments? Susan.
To come to a meeting for on the 1st of August?
1st of August, so FIFA Women's World Cup. Okay, so that's a global event, is coming to Australia. Adelaide at the stadium in High Marsh is hosting a number of games. The 1st of August, England is playing. This is why we're doing the AUKUS event, because England's playing China. So before I don't know if it's a game or match. Who knows? Game or match? Anyway. Yes, because you're volunteering, Athena, aren't you? Right? So we're going to do a networking event at 4:30 on the 1st of August at Lady Daly Hotel, which is near the stadium but not too crazy close, about AUKUS and people that are working in the UK and US markets. Okay? Cool.
Andy, can we just sort of quickly think about, if we're tightening our belts, then somebody else is probably doing quite well. You know, every time we sort of look at what's going on with ourselves, like if you lose $1 on the stock market, someone's probably made $1. You know, so wherever there's a downside, there's normally an upside. And the US, $23 trillion economy at the moment is booming. We've got fair trade agreements. We've got sister city relationships. And if things are getting tight here, you have to look around and go, what's happening in India? What's happening in the US? Because somebody else is doing well.
Okay, everyone, we're on to 3 N's now. So we've done our 3 L's. We're on to our 3 N's on your napkin there. The first one is nationwide reach. So you want nationwide reach. This means when it comes to your databases, the events you're connecting into, the way that you are sharing on social media. If you are only sharing local content that's focused on you, that is not going to get you very far. You at least need to nationalise your social media posts, if not internationalise it. And I'll talk about some strategies in a minute. And I just want to share a very quick story because some of you, and I've touched on this before, would have seen that in March, Scott and I went to South by Southwest to Austin. And if you were there with us, you would have been going for a number of years, but you would never have hosted your own event before. Like this event is 278,000 people go to it, right, this year. Crazy. And even though I like hosting events and I try very hard to host awesome events, it's still incredibly daunting for you if you've never done an event at South by Southwest before. The nationwide reach was so important with the backstory of this because what happened was posting on LinkedIn, oh, we're going to South by Southwest, thinking about doing an event, who's interested in supporting it, and you might have then got a connection with somebody who had a lot of money to spend but didn't know how to spend it. So a guy in Queensland saw the post to connect to a guy in San Francisco, actually representing our state government, hilariously, who said he was going to South by Southwest for the first time. He wanted to collaborate on an event. He had no clue what he was doing. He'd never been before, and the context is really important here. So the solution was, have I got an event for you? And you would have been very happy when this fellow agreed to pay $7,500 USD for an event that you designed and that you hosted And of course, where you gave them a kudos, but that's worth about $10,000 Australian, right? And there would have been no other way that we could have pulled that off. And also at Australia House, which normally takes a whole year to do the planning for, but because this guy representing the state government based in San Fran and his Queensland colleague had put me onto him, he knew the woman at Australia House, this is where the networking comes in, she agreed, no problems at all. Put us on the program. And Australia, you know, this is another thing that's really important. Australians and Australian brand literally cuts through almost above any other country pretty much in the world. And this is in not just in the US or the UK, but so many countries. Like we do a lot of work in Southeast Asia and the Asia Pacific. People absolutely love the fact that you're Australian. They even love listening to your accent. You know, they'll give you so many concessions that you probably don't deserve, but you can take advantage of. So nationwide reach. That's why having your LinkedIn profile, having those connections and taking advantage of, you know, where it's still with a hashtag humble hustle approach, like we're not taking advantage to see people do poorly, we're taking advantage of the opportunities to see people do well. The second area is national partnerships. So you need to think about what this might be for you, whether or not this is people in the same industry sector as you or customers or your supply chain. But I'll just give you a really quick example. This morning I sent out an email. So Workforce Blueprint originally started in the vocational education and training sector and strategic workforce planning and development. I'd written a blog just in the last week or two that I've been brewing on for a while, and it's a little bit controversial if you're in that sector. But basically, we've got a new structure of jobs and skills councils. There's 10 of them, and we've had many iterations of this in the past. But this morning, I sent out an email to these jobs and skills councils and said, hey guys, congratulations on winning the contract. In the past, because there's a certain methodology that the government wants them to use. In the past, I've used a methodology really similar to what the government is asking you to do. It worked incredibly well. If you want to know more about that, let me know. And by the way, here's the link to the blog. Now, I can't tell you yet the results, but I've already had a number of people respond just in the way here, saying that they want to reach out and have another chat about it. So they were not expecting that email. They were not thinking, oh, Perry's going to email me with these recommendations. But strategically, there might be things happening in your sector or in your broader network where you can comment on that, or you can make suggestions or recommendations, or you could come up with some sort of solution. And those 10 organisations have got a contract from government for many years. And basically, my background aim is to be one of their partners, right? So that's why I'm fostering this relationship with things like that give them value straight away. Does that make sense to you? Okay, so you might need to think about who that would be for you. The next thing is new product and service expansion. Okay, so maybe you've got an existing product that you could tweak. Maybe you've got some insight because customers and clients have been asking for something different. So new product, service, experience expansion. Now, just quickly, there's two key areas where there is not enough products and services. Two key sectors. What are they at the moment? Tourism and what's the second sector? Tourism and the care sector. Tourism and the care sector. Okay? So specifically disability and aged care. Maybe there is something that you know or that you provide as a service that you could teach, that you could turn into an experience. And a third element of this is, can you take what you know and teach it and turn it into an online program to give you an international audience with evergreen content? You know, the trend is to start with a video-based, self-paced, you know, binge-worthy online program to then look at the next structure where you have interaction, where you might coach and mentor. But it could be on beauty and makeup and hair, for example, which is what, you know, Jana does. There could be many topics. It could be about how you use Lisa's products, which is OMG, like you have to have a chat to her. How do you cook with it? How do you make meals with it? There's so much content that you could potentially develop and collaborate. So just have a really super quick 30-second chat to the person next to you. Just a really quick brainstorm idea, a new product, service, or maybe a new market. Quick chat. Okay, everybody, have you come up with something? Hey, Ella, how are you? Good. All right, let's bring it back in, everybody. Has anyone got a suggestion of a new product, service, or experience? Anyone want to volunteer? Scotty, are you ready with the mic? So
Anyone?
volunteer for a new product, service, or experience.
Yes.
Sorry, I have to be a joke, but not really. Experiences on a organic farm, such as weeding, learning how to grow, harvesting, anything.
Yes, I like the weeding side because that's like a working bee, but it's framed up where people pay for it. That's awesome.
That's it.
That's so good.
Also the education piece around organic food. There's probably a whole course you could do on organics and why it's important and how to grow it and how to grow it at home, and there's endless amount of content there you could create as well. And then hands-on, that's it.
Yep. Anyone else? Quick
Practice. Sandra,
example?
do you have something you want to add?
Aged care sector is a big sector for me because I work in decluttering and professional organising. So anything that's helping people with that transition to moving and what they're going to keep and what they're going to go. So doing a weekend workshop or a couple of hours on letting go and how you work through the process of decluttering.
Yeah, and I think that's really important also for the kids and the grandkids in that sort of process of you working with elderly people.
Well, my dad always says you've got to live long enough to burden your kids. So I've got a shed full of stuff that I'm going to burden them with.
So I've become a bit of a workshop groupie, I've noticed. Lots of, g'day, how you doing? You're here for free meal again, are you? Are you hearing anything?
Yeah, I think so. Just talk loud.
Philip's my name. I have a small organisation called Cutting Edge. That's better. I have shared my story with some of you. The talk about hands-on in schools. Right now, hands-on in schools is actually quite rare because a lot of schools are using commercial programs to teach to NAPLAN, to teach to the competitive nature of schools. I found a gap. My buddy's been in the UK. He can't find anything happening over there. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the University of Flinders is actually very interested in this because they teach their pre-service teachers, we're helping them look at the ways that we're starting re-engaging kids in schools because it's gone quite badly.
Okay, so the experience is around engaging kids in schools, and there's all sorts of themes and topics that probably everybody else in the room could actually have. All right, we need to move on to the 3 I's. So the first I is import. So the N's are nationwide reach, national partnerships, and new products, services, and experiences. Okay? All right, the 3 I's. It is import and export opportunities. Now, our state government and federal government will be very focused on export, but you might have some opportunities around import, and you might also have people in your network that can make amazing connections and introductions to you. And sometimes we dismiss this, but talking about Possible's network that I helped MC his launch last year with multicultural people, but also people more broadly in your network. Many people have got amazing connections that could help you get an introduction to another country or another region. And this is absolutely key. When I first put into my company's strategic plan back in 2012, you're going to do international work, I had no bloody idea how to do that, but started to blog about it, post on social media, talk it up. Like, I don't know about you, but you might be somebody like me where you talk up what you're going to do even before you've done it. Do you do that? And then people think you're actually doing it. And then they go, oh, you're doing X, Y, and Z. Do you want to do this? So that's how a lot of this international connections and work happens. So import and export opportunities. And this is why it's important to understand the trade agreements too. The next thing is intercultural competence. Okay, now some people get very worried about this topic, and I wouldn't say that you need to be overly concerned about it, like they're worried, oh, am I doing the right thing and what's the protocols? usually what happens, and because Australia generally is a very egalitarian society, we normally have quite good self-awareness about these sort of things, and everyone here would, because otherwise you wouldn't be here. So you watch, you observe, you take note of what people do when it comes to that intercultural competence. And if there's somebody that you can kind of like follow, that's a mentor. So, for example, one of the guys that I've worked with since 2012 is coming to do an event on the 5th of July in Adelaide called Nelson Salangsang. And he's the one that we've done the most international projects and programs with. He's done over 150. The fact that he's coming to Adelaide and he's going to be speaking at our SA Development Professionals meetups, like everybody, I can't stress enough about how important it is to meet this guy. But for example, when I first went to the Kingdom of Bhutan, and I've been there maybe 10 times, imagine you are freaked out thinking, you've never been to this country. How does this whole protocol work? It's very traditional. People wear traditional dress. It seems very formal. Nelson was so fantastic because we met, for example, the Prime Minister and ministers in the royal family. And I'm like, shit. But anyway, what happens is when you meet somebody who's like a minister or a prime minister in a country like Bhutan, you watch and you see what people do. So you do this with both your hands open to your knees. But when you meet royal family, you go right down to your ankles. And hilariously, one time I was flying into Bhutan with a colleague, and I saw the airline staff, come on late, and they whisk somebody into the first row on this Royal Bhutan Airlines plane. And they did this to that guy. So I realised, I think that might be the prince. It was actually the prince. And you know me, I got a selfie when we landed. But my colleague was sat next to him and she was on her phone and she didn't even take any notice. And I tapped her on the shoulder and I'm like, you are sitting next to one of the princes of Bhutan. Like, there's quite a few princes. But you're sitting, she's like, why? How do you know that? Because he's in Western clothes, just, it's quite young. I'm like, because they all do this every time they go past him. And he was so lovely and had a photo with us. Yugin, his name is. So that went well on socials.
Now,
okay.
look around the room. We are so lucky to be involved. I mean, Possible just disappeared. I don't know if you knew I was going to pick on him, but we have so many people within the room, within our connections, within our networks, that understand what cultures are actually like in different countries. I mean, if I start at this end of the table, Callan's worked in Romania. Raise your hand if you've got experience working internationally. If you've got experience of working with different cultures, yeah? And you might know that if you sort of work in this space, or if you've been in this space, there's a lot of bullshit out there about what you should do and what you shouldn't do. Wendy's experienced it in Bhutan and a certain culture when you meet royalty. But I remember going to the Confucius Institute, learning about what it was like to do business in China, and then going to China with Chinese business people. And they'd say, this is what you do when you hold your card like this, and this is how you communicate with people in China. But if I was to turn around and tell you, give someone a bit of an understanding of what culture's like in Australia, the way I might suggest you interact with Chris might be different to Wendy. It might be different to Tony. It might be different to Kat. Everybody reacts in a different. What we got to realise is that when we do business internationally, we need that understanding, and we have connections within the room, or at least maybe one or two seats away from us that can probably help us with that. So tap into what you've got.
Yes, and I didn't know what story Scott was going to tell then, because one time we had a delegation from Bhutan in Adelaide, and
let's tell them when we went to Melbourne, because Wendy wants to cut this story off.
No, I'm happy for you.
And this delegation from Bhutan in Melbourne, decides to take us out to the. Sorry?
I don't think that one. I was going to tell the zoo story. That's nicer. So we went to Adelaide Zoo and we're there with this head of the delegation and we saw the pandas. And Scott's telling this guy who's the head, like representing the government from this other country, I'll go and stand next to this panda and put the jacket over your shoulders and things like that. And it actually looked like he had his head up the panda's bum. It was very contextual. People loved it, but I was just going, oh my God. Now, that would not be on the training as to how to interact with the Kingdom of Bhutan. Okay, let's move on. So import and export opportunities, intercultural competence, but again, just kind of think through, okay, how do you want to be treated? Be observant. Like if I'm going to the Maldives or Indonesia, and particularly to a really strict province, I'm not wearing a mini skirt and showing my arms. That's just how it is, right? So just be observant of that. But the third I is international supply chains. And you might think, oh, we don't have many headquarters here, or maybe there's not many opportunities. But in the area that you might work, which is if it's anything to do with knowledge or education, there are a couple of massive consulting firms, not just in Australia, but the whole world. So my friend Nelson, who we work with at QUT, he's now got a job at Tetra Tech. So if you want to do anything in this space, Tetra Tech and Palladium, they're the two biggest international capability consulting firms, like literally in the region. Tetra Tech would be in the whole world. And he's got headhunted and made his job there. Now, they have got opportunities all the time. At the moment, I'm writing a proposal to do work in Vietnam and another one in Cambodia. There's so many opportunities that just come up all the time, but they need to know you. They need to know who you are and what your strengths are, because they have to be able to trust you and invite you to do that work. So, 2 takeaways, Tetra Tech, Palladium, look them up and check out their tenders, and also make sure you're connecting on LinkedIn with that. Okay, so we've got like 3 L's, we've got 3 N's, and we've got 3 I's, and I'm just going to finish up with 3 S's, because this is switch, start, scale. Yeah? First S is switch. And the takeaway here is to switch up the events and your socials. So don't just go to the normal, everyday, normal events. Go to something outside of the box. And on your socials, if you want to have national and international opportunities, that means that you need to be posting national and international content. For some people in the room, I've told you how one of the things that I did, which was a bit cheeky, but I had a blogging strategy. And I thought when we first started doing national work, which was probably 20 years ago, we wrote blogs about the places that we wanted to visit, like on holiday, but also do work. So we wrote blogs about, you know, certain regions and communities, and also published blogs about other countries, okay? So even though you haven't gone to another country, you can still get research and information, and you can put some sort of analysis over it. And so people then thought, oh, you're already doing work nationally in this place. You're already doing work internationally in this place. Bit cheeky, but humble hustle. But it really does work. And so when it comes to where you're sourcing your content from, you know, you need to be looking more broader, particularly on industry trends and opportunities. Start. So switch is switching up your events and your socials. Start is start paying attention, particularly to those international trade agreements. These are opportunities for every single one of us in the room. And I recently tried to find an expert on AUKUS, you know, the Australia, UK, US trade agreement, and I couldn't find anyone. So I'm going to speak on it. Why not? And do the analysis. And the third thing is scale. Scale your national and global connections. And, you know, if we've worked together, you know the importance that I place upon LinkedIn in particular. You know, I've maxed out my connections of 30,000 and have 30,000 followers, and we have 100,000 all up on all of our socials. And we have 65,000 or more now on email databases, but you'll know that that's been built over a long time.
Is anybody ready to switch, to start to scale up their international connections? Anyone really keen to make a connection now, yeah? Okay, who do you want a connection to? I'm going to go off script again because Wendy loves it. Yeah. Has anyone seen the what's that show that you watch sometimes, Michael McIntyre?
Oh yeah, he's a comedian, but...
What's the show you watch sometimes? The thing where he does takes a people's phone and makes a connection. Send to all. Send to all.
Send to all.
Yeah.
Not doing... Has anyone watched... Yeah. You're not doing that, but who has watched that show?
Okay, who's brave enough to
We're not going to send to everybody in people's phones.
No, just send to one person. But who's brave enough to actually make an international connection right here, right now? Okay, Charlene. Okay, who do you want to be connected to?
Yeah, hi. I want to be connected to people that live in California, particularly around LA, that want to lean in to master communication for influence and authority. I've got a series of workshops there, and I want some people that I can connect to beforehand. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay. Yep. I know who that is.
Where's your phone? Where's your phone, Charlene? Yeah. Open up LinkedIn. Wendy, you want to start this process?
Yep. Okay. The guy's name is Andrew Letton.
Okay. Come on, Charlene. Come on. Just come. Right. Come on. You're going to have to hand your phone over to Wendy. This was part of the deal. Take your phone. Okay.
Okay. The guy's name is Andrew Letton. You said San Fran? You said, yep. Okay. He's in San Fran. Okay. So I'm going to do a message between the two of you. Let's go to message. Okay, to Andrew.
Andrew Letton. Anyone else brave enough to make connections internationally this
and
easy?
Charlene.
No,
hang on.
You're going to have to hand your phone. Should Charlene hand her phone over to Wendy? Is Wendy trustworthy enough to? She is.
So hi, Andrew and Charlene.
But I think Wendy should write your response too.
Yeah, I'm going to. Hi, Andrew and Charlene. Connecting you as, what do you want?
You want to master communication for influence and authority?
Charlene is keen to connect with people in San Fran or in California connect with people in, I'll say SF to be cool, and California who want to master communication and
Communication for influence and authority.
For influence and authority. Now, I have to say something about you. What are you? An amazing South Australian something?
And body language expert.
Yeah. Charlene is an amazing South Australian business owner and leader. Business owner and leader.
And while you're forming up a response from Charlene as well, who else wants to make an international connection, or who's in a position to connect somebody internationally? You're going to take a shot at it. I mean, it can be national. It's not. I mean, if you've done the national, okay. Who do you want to be connected to?
Which country? I'd like to go to the US because the US has similar educational dramas. They have charter schools. They have all sorts of inequality. So I would like to find an education researcher, alternative education or curriculum researcher in the US.
So, sorry, say that again. You would like?
Curriculum or an educational researcher in alternative learning programs.
Okay. You need to give me a location because the US is so... Yeah, but
US.
no. I say Washington.
Yeah, go for it.
Because that's where everything's
That's
done.
where you're flying next month too.
All right, sorry. I'm just going to write this message back from Charlene. Hi, Andrew. Hi, Andrew.
Okay. Is there anyone that has connections, staff, offices overseas that is doing some really cool stuff? Anyone working overseas at the moment? Anyone got staff overseas? Yeah? Whereabouts?
Well, this one's a little bit niche, but we've got some really strong networks in the area of humanitarian aid in Balkan Europe. So we work with UNICEF and the United Nations across Serbia, Bulgaria, Romania, etc. So anyone who's looking in the social impact space across Balkan Europe, we've got some good networks there.
Okay, I can find a UN connection for you, for sure.
Right.
Okay, so hi, Andrew. So great to be connected with you. Wendy recommends you highly.
Hands-on educational experiences.
And could we please make a time to... He would normally do an online meeting or something like that. And could we please... Want to do it next week? What day?
By the way, if you want to know the story that Wendy shut me down on, you'll have to come and see me separately to the when the microphone's not in
Monday
my
or
hand.
another day looks good. Monday or when looks good? Wednesday looks good. Please let me know. Just nice and friendly, as if you already know him, you know? Okay. And I'm just going to check my spelling. All right. This is going to take me a little bit, Scotty, so people might need to finish
Very
their
good.
meals, but
Okay.
basically...
So you do that. We're gonna. So Wendy's doing that connection there. Brajesh, you in terms of hands-on educational experiences, can you tell us what you do and how you might be connected internationally or nationally?
Yeah, I run a business called Switched on Kids, and the idea actually started with my two boys, and we were struggling to get some good educational toys. So we sell science toys which make learning fun, because the idea is that when kids are playing, they learn the best. Answering your question, we source these products from all over the world, right from the US, UK, Singapore, China, and Hong Kong. And we have our team based in India and Philippines, if that helps.
If that helps. So if you're in education, if you want hands-on educational experiences, you have an expert in the room in terms of multicultural connections, sourcing, and a distribution. You have a distribution network for these things as well?
Yeah, so we sell to, it's B2C predominantly, but we have started selling to libraries, a lot of aged care centers, a lot of schools. And we do participate in a lot of science exhibitions, but very, very niche market. We are happy. The idea is to, if we can change lives of 500,000 STEM-oriented kids through science toys, we'll be very happy with that.
So that's a pretty ambitious goal. So we've got connections to Balkan Europe, we've got connections to Philippines, India, sourcing, hands-on educational games. Where else do we have connections in the room? Where else do we have connections internationally in the room? Sorry? NASA. We have connections to NASA. Where do we have connections to NASA? Sorry? Crystal Johnson, yeah?
Crystal Johnson in NASA, she's really high up in there. I actually met her personally, and she was really lovely, and the connections in the space industry from that are quite involved.
So we have connections in the space industry. We also have space
Scott,
experts, yes.
the message that we sent to Andrew through Starlane, he's already responded to you.
There you go. So we got connections to space and STEM.
Sure do.
Isabella loves the microphone, as you can see.
Not really, but what kind of connections we're looking for? NASA, you said.
No, I'm just saying, like, what you know, we're looking at all the connections we can make, and we talked about NASA and space. So tell us what you do.
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm a recent graduate from LA Uni, and I run a satellite company designing educational satellites so we can basically make learning STEM and tech fun. So I'm talking to you later. I'm talking to you soon. We do have international interest. It's just a matter of meeting the demand. So yeah, if you guys are anyone interested in investing in education or education tech, look for the short Italian over here. Otherwise, yeah, we're kind of heading into America, the UK, and New Zealand at the moment.
Very good. Was that almost a round of applause you were going to? Okay. Yeah. In terms of plastics, we got Cullen over here who's got a PhD in plastics and has worked in Romania and all sorts of places, and is also involved in making educational games and all the rest of it. Would that be right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I'm involved in multiple things at the moment. So both consulting, scientific consulting in plastics, mainly in plastics, but also green, renewable energy, recycling, circular economy. As a side track, I'm also into educational games. So I did invented a couple of them that are in the process of getting to lift them up the ground and take them further. Yeah, so that's basically what I'm doing. And I have experience internationally. I've worked in Romania and Germany and Philippines France, Italy, Belgium, Netherlands, you name it. I've probably been there even in UK. And now I'm back in Australia. I started this business again with consulting and education and training.
So if nothing else, you can always help people understand the culture and all the rest of it around all of those different countries you worked in. Possible, how many people, where might be the connections within your network?
We have connections Bangladeshi. We also have connections in Africa. We also have connection in Canada as well as UK as well.
You have connections. You were telling me you're going to maybe looking at starting, getting some developers from internationally as well. Where are they likely to come from? Who are you, and what are you working on?
Possibly India and London. Yeah, that's pretty much.
There you go. So we start to see we've got this like incredible mix of people who can help you with understanding culture, who can make connections for you, who can help you in all sorts of ways. Yeah.
All right, I think we need to wrap things up, darling, soon, so people can do some more networking.
We do.
So
just remember to pass that card round. Now, Wendy talked very much before about how people might be tightening their belts and all the rest of it. So I did get you a very small bunch of flowers for the work you've done over time. But we had to tighten our belt, because I was going to be like a big bunch, but we're all,
I think it just wasn't very organised. But thank you, darling. I appreciate it.
All right, and thank you all for coming along, for contributing. It's quite brave when someone comes and shoves a microphone in your face and expects you to say something and share your experience. So we do appreciate, your input, your connections coming along. Sorry, I just have to raise this one, yeah? Can you tell us a little bit about what you did in terms of your international experience just recently?
So I run a PR agency called Rome Generation, and I've started my company on a boat, so I was already international, so I've just kind of stayed international. All my clients are overseas, my team's overseas. So yeah, I'm constantly working basically remotely from Australia, but with clients all over the world. And only 2 days ago, we just signed a client called Submerge, who builds and runs underwater submarine expeditions. So obviously very timely with what's happening in the media. So I'm looking really tired and I've got bags under my eyes because I stayed up most of the night last night organising interviews with them with CNN, New York Times, BBC, Daily Mail. So yeah, that's what I do. So you'll see a lot of the stories that come out today. We'll have our client in there speaking as an expert about submersibles.
And we have to say that they are not the one that has gone missing. This is another company that's really, I guess, juxtaposing where they're at with their position. So awesome.
Yeah. But you see the connections within the room, within the community, within, and we haven't even started to explore, second, third, fourth connections yet. So, thank you to Wendy for all you've done in terms of this, in terms of the last few years with Switch Start Scale. We'll figure out how we're going to make it continue to happen, because I think we all enjoy coming along to these lunches. Would you agree, yes or no? Fantastic. So, thank you, Wendy. Please sign the card. And let's continue the chats.
Yeah, thanks, honey. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. And feel free to ask any more questions later. See ya.